Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into one of the most disruptive ideas of our time, Bitcoin. We're going to unpack the argument behind it using sources like the Bitcoin Standard and the original white paper to really get at the case for a whole new kind of money. All right? Let's dive in.
To really understand why Bitcoin was even created, you have to first look at the problem it claims to solve. And it all starts with this pretty provocative critique, right? The idea that the very experts managing our financial world have, well, failed. And that failure sets the stage for something totally new.
So what is that core problem? According to the book, The Bitcoin Standard, the argument is that the money we use every single day, the stuff controlled by governments, often called fiat currency, is fundamentally broken. The author basically frames the entire history of money as this epic battle between two big ideas. You've got sound money on one side, it's hard to make, it holds its value, you can't just mess with the supply. And on the other side, you've got easy money, which, well, is easy to make. It can be printed whenever a central authority decides, and because of that, it's always losing its buying power. Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, because this choice of money supposedly changes how we all act. The book brings up this idea of time preference. So think of it this way. A society with sound, hard money is encouraged to save, to invest, to think about the long term. That's a low time preference. But a society with easy money, it pushes you to spend right now, before your cash is worth less. That's a high time preference. And the consequences of that shift, according to the author, are just massive. The argument is that easy money is a system that punishes people who save. It encourages us all to get into debt. And as you can see, the list of claims is pretty long. That it lets governments fund their spending through inflation, that it causes these huge economic swings. The book even argues, pretty controversially, that it makes our whole culture worse by forcing us to think only about the short term.
All right, so if easy money is the problem, what's the solution? What does an ideal sound money actually look like from this point of view? For most of human history, the answer was simple: gold. Let's dig into why.
So the most important quality of sound money, the book argues, is its hardness, its scarcity. And you can actually measure this with something called the stock-to-flow ratio. It's really simple. You just divide how much of something already exists, the stock, by how much new stuff is produced each year, the flow. The higher that ratio, the harder it is to inflate the supply.
And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. This is why gold became money. It has the highest stock-to-flow ratio of any commodity out there. Think about it. Even if the price of gold skyrocketed tomorrow, you can't just go and magically dig up twice as much. It's that resistance to new supply that made it such a reliable way to store your wealth over generations.
So that brings us to the modern day, the digital age. For a long, long time, making a digital version of gold just seemed impossible. I mean, the digital world is all about infinite, perfect, cost-free copies, which is the literal opposite of scarcity. And that was a massive, massive computer science problem. This is the absolute core of the issue. It's called the double spend problem. If I have a digital file that represents $1 and I send it to you, how do you really know I didn't just send a copy of that exact same file to somebody else? For years, the only answer was to have a middleman, like a bank, keeping track of everything in a central ledger. And then, in late 2008, seemingly out of nowhere, this paper appears from a mysterious person or group called Satoshi Nakamoto, and it proposed a solution that didn't need a bank, didn't need any central authority at all. It was a total game changer.
Okay, so here's the solution in a nutshell. First, as you see there in step 1, every single transaction is shouted out to a public ledger that everybody shares. That's the blockchain. Now, step 2, to add a new batch or block of transactions to that ledger, people called miners have to burn real-world electricity and computer power to solve a really hard math puzzle. This is called proof of work. And finally, step 3, whoever solves the puzzle first gets to add the next block, linking it to the last one. The longest chain, the one with the most work put into it, is the one everyone agrees is the true history. And that's the key. To go back and change something, you'd have to redo all that work and then outwork the entire global network. It's designed to be practically impossible.
So this is the really crucial part. This big technological breakthrough wasn't just about solving a geeky computer problem. According to the source material, it created something brand new, an asset with properties that are designed to mimic
and maybe even beat the hardest money in all of human history: gold.
First and foremost is this number: absolute scarcity. Unlike government money that can be printed infinitely, or even gold, where we can always theoretically find more, Bitcoin's supply is locked by its code. There will only ever be 21 million, period. No more can ever be created. And that's the first time we've ever had an asset with a truly finite, verifiable supply.
On top of that, the speed at which new Bitcoins are created is programmed to slow down. Roughly every 4 years, there's an event called the halving, where the reward for miners gets cut in half. This means its inflation rate is not only known in advance, but it's guaranteed to decrease over time on a schedule that nobody can change, making it more and more scarce.
And this chart is where the core argument really comes together. As you can see, Bitcoin's stock-to-flow ratio is already getting close to gold's, but check this out. After the 2024 halving, its S2F ratio is programmed to double, blowing past gold for the very first time. The whole design, the ultimate goal here is for Bitcoin to become the scarcest liquid asset humanity has ever had. Now, if these arguments we've been looking at turn out to be true, the consequences go way, way beyond just your bank account. They point to a really fundamental shift in the power balance between us as individuals and the big institutions that run things. You know, some thinkers saw something like this coming. A book from way back in 1997, The Sovereign Individual, actually predicted that a technology that allowed for private, non-government money would radically shift power away from governments and give it back to individuals. For a lot of its supporters, Bitcoin is the technology that makes that prophecy real. So let's just quickly pull all these threads together. The argument starts with the problem of easy money and how it eats away at our savings. Then we saw how sound money is all about scarcity, that high stock-to-flow ratio. Bitcoin's big breakthrough was figuring out how to create that scarcity in the digital world. And with its hard cap of 21 million, it's presented from this viewpoint as the ultimate tool for financial freedom. And this all brings us to one last, really big, provocative question. The sources we've looked at today don't just see Bitcoin as some new digital stock to trade. They see it as a new foundation for society. They argue that the kind of money we use shapes everything: our economy, our culture, how we think about the future, even our freedom. So the question they leave us with is this: if our money truly changes, what else does?